everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first pro-revenge story of the day comes from Lil Devil, how Miss Reliable got her D-bag of a boss fired. Hey everyone, long-time lurker of this subreddit, first time posting, and boy do I have a story. Background: I've been working in the retail business for over 20 years, and let me tell you, some of the managers they hire, I can do a better job. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Over the years of doing retail, I've established a reputation for myself. I'm Mrs. Reliable. Need someone to come in? They call me. Need someone to stay late? They call me. Need to switch with someone because management said no for your day off? They call me. You can probably see where this story might be going. The story. This took place a couple years ago, back in 2020, when I worked at a major grocery store in my city. I'm going on 2 years at the store, and we went through so many people and managers, it wasn't funny. Literally, it felt like we had a revolving door with how much turnover and employment we had. I was a cashier who had a tendency to be too good at my job. I was just hired to be a cashier. I was not a manager, nor a monitor, someone that is a step down from management but doesn't have all the responsibilities of management, nor was I in customer service. However, I was trained for nearly all the duties of someone who is. Need change? I went to cashier, got the money out of the drawer, and went to grab the change that they needed. Need an override? I'll do it. Need something from behind the counter? I just need to know what it is you need, and I'll go and grab it. I did all this on top of my cashier duties and self-checkout duties. Now, my manager at the time, let's call her Ashley. Ashley is the front-end manager, meaning she's in charge of everything that goes on at the registers, cash office where all the money is, customer service, and the self-checkouts. Now, I liked Ashley. She was a really good boss, and I liked working with her. Ashley had gotten pregnant and was expecting her second child. I was excited for her. Unfortunately, when Ashley came back, she was no longer going to be my manager, nor was she going to work full-time. She decided to come back as part-time. I can't really blame her though. You're working 40 hours a week and are not allowed any overtime whatsoever. Plus, you can be working as early as 5 a.m. to working as late as whenever the last customer decided to leave. Last time that happened, I didn't get out until 11:15 p.m. Enter D-bag. If you ever wondered what happened to that spoiled brat in school whose mommy never said no and always got what they wanted, that's D-bag all grown up in a manager's position. He was the type of manager that if he told you to do something, he expected you to do it without any questions. Have plans after work? D-bag expected you to whip out your phone right there and cancel your plans and come into work. Have a doctor's appointment? No, you didn't. If you told him no, he would say in the most condescending tone, "Well, I need you to do it anyway," and then just stand there scowling at you the whole time, basically trying to intimidate you by making you feel so uncomfortable by staring at you until you cave. The setup. Now, I had my fair share of awful managers to the point where if I didn't need the money, I would have walked out right then and there and never returned. But I also had my fair share of good managers. D-bag was somewhere in the middle, leaning more towards the walking out. Now, with me, I'll admit, over the years, I developed a sassy, sarcastic personality. I'm blunt, no filter, say what's on my mind, and I don't put up with people's BS. Apparently, D-bag didn't get the memo. Around this time, summer was ending, meaning we were in the now hiring stage, and many positions were starting to open up in the store. Keep this in mind. Now, what did D-bag do to get me to start my pro-revenge? Strike one. I had out-of-patient vein surgery done to one of my legs and needed to take a few days off. Since I had some vacation time saved up, I used my hours for those few days so that I didn't have to worry so much about not getting paid. D-bag called me a day before I was supposed to come in, asking if I can do a 9 to 1 shift. I asked him 3 times over the phone, who's closing? Because originally, I was supposed to close that day until I got my approval for my days off. D-bag never answered me, so I just figured that they had it covered. I came in, and of course, halfway through my shift, D-bag calls me over and says that they don't have a closer. Keep in mind that I asked him 3 times over the phone who was closing. D-bag wanted me to clock out, go home for a few hours, and then come back to work and close. I said no, and then he tried the whole guilt tripping about, quote, not having anyone, and that we really need you to do this. I said no because 1, I'm really tired tired and just came off surgery like 3 days ago. And 2, I already made plans with my husband for the evening. Of course, D-Bag didn't like this, because the next time I came to work, D-Bag was just being petty and passive-aggressive with me. Basically, he would either pretend I wasn't there, ignore me, or the transaction that he was doing was taking longer than it should, and then chastised me in front of the customers for taking too long. When I had my follow-up appointment with the vein doctor, D-Bag asked me if I could come earlier. I told him no, I can't because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning that day. Then he did his usual, "We need you to do it anyway," and started to stare at me. Unfortunately for him, I'm used to this because of Karen's and Kevin's trying to intimidate me because something didn't go their way. I quickly shut that down by getting the other cashier's attention when they needed help with something, or quickly grabbed a customer's attention. When I came in after my appointment, D-Bag with a smug grin, very loudly in earshot of the bigwigs from corporate visiting that day, said, "Well, OP, looks like you noticed that I didn't call you in because we didn't need you." I replied, "Good, because I wasn't able to come in early anyway." Strike 2. Remember how I said that the store had openings? Well, turns out customer service needed some help, and the only way to get there was to ask your manager. So I went to D-Bag and asked about being at the customer service desk. With everything that I've already been doing, I was basically the front-end assistant manager without the pay and title. D-Bag said that he would get back to me, especially since I've been doing a great job. 2 to 3 weeks later, I'm seeing people that I trained or have started months after I did getting promoted to customer service desk. Well, I stayed as a cashier with all the other responsibilities piled on top. The customer service desk position would have easily been a 50-cent raise. The monitor position would have been a 75-cent raise. And of course, D-Bag didn't want to pay more for the exact same thing that I was already doing. I was starting to get the message of, why pay for the cow when the milk is free? Strike 3. I was starting to look for another job at this point because I was getting sick and tired of how I was being treated, but I wanted to try and give this guy one last chance. So I found out that the seafood department in my store had an opening, and I even talked to the seafood department manager Debbie about me possibly being in her department. She was ecstatic to have me and was willing to work around my college schedule. I had to talk to my manager D-Bag in order to get the transfer going. I talked to D-Bag and he started to come up with any and all kinds of excuses to not have me transfer. I quickly shot that down, and even the one where he tried to say that I can't because another coworker was transferring, first time I've heard of this, but the coworker said they had no problem with me going. So I thought that was that, right? Wrong. 3 to 4 weeks have passed, and I'm getting nowhere with the whole transferring to the other department situation. Even Debbie was wondering why it was taking so long. Turns out, D-Bag blocked my transfer, and they wound up hiring a new employee in the seafood department. D-Bag thought that if there was no positions available, he could just deny my transfer, and that I would have no choice but to stay. After an argument between the two of us about this, because I was calling him out on his BS, D-Bag said the magic words, "Just do your job." Cue the malicious compliance. Just do my job? Okay. I was so glad that wearing a mask was required. Otherwise, D-Bag might have seen my evil smile when I agreed to just do my job. Need an override? Sorry, but I'm not management, nor am I a monitor, so I can't do that. Let me go grab someone who can. Need change? Can't do that either. Need something behind the customer service desk? Sorry, but I'm not trained, nor am I customer service. Let me grab someone. D-Bag was at his wit's end, and even tried to write me up for it. I quickly shut that down when I started to recite what being a cashier entails and what my actual job of being a cashier is. And I told him that if he wants me to continue with all those responsibilities, that he needs to promote me so I can do all of them. He quickly stepped back into his passive-aggressive behavior that I quickly shut down. I eventually found another job with better pay and better benefits, and handed in my resignation with 10 days notice. That D-Bag tried to deny and say, "No, you have to give us 2 weeks notice." I quickly shut that down with a response. You wouldn't be giving us a 2-week notice if you're going to fire us, or lay us off or let us go, just a 2-minute warning. Cue the petty revenge. Now you're probably wondering, what could I have possibly done for the petty revenge? Well, there was an old saying, never kill the golden goose. Well, readers, what do you think happens to a department that is solely dependable on one person whose reputation is Mrs. Reliable? Need me to come in on my day off? Sorry, I can't. I have plans. Need me to stay late? Sorry, I can't. Already made plans. Someone called out, nope, can't make it. I did this throughout the entire rest of my stay. D-Bag couldn't do anything about it either, and it was starting to get to him on what happens when you rely heavily on someone else, but treat them so badly that they actually decide to leave. D-Bag's performance, because I wasn't there to cover his butt, was starting to take a toll. He had to take care of his own responsibilities, and there wasn't a thing he could do to me. He kept trying to be extra passive-aggressive with me, to which I just smiled and waved and said goodbye to everyone but him. Now, this wouldn't be a pro-revenge without the pro-revenge. After talking to a friend of mine about what happened when I worked there, he told me to report this to the district manager, because that kind of behavior isn't good for the workplace. Cue the pro-revenge. I got the email address of the district manager from my friend, and then I went back to the store as a customer. I kept in touch with a couple of my old coworkers and kept asking them how they were doing and how work was going. None of them had a problem in venting to me on how bad things were getting with D-Bag. I asked if they didn't mind if I put their name in the complaint, or if they just wanted to be anonymous. A lot of them chose the latter. I whipped out my phone, used the quick memo app that I had, and quickly wrote the notes in my phone, the date, and the register that the cashier was on at the time. I sent that email with the attached notes and with the entire account on my part to the district manager. Now, this wouldn't be a pro-revenge if it just stopped there. I took it a step further. You see, with the receipts that we get, there is a survey on the bottom, and management kept trying to boost us to get customers to take the survey because it helped the store look good. Well, here's the thing about that survey. When you fill out the survey, including the comments, everyone gets to see it. And I mean everyone. D-Bag, the assistant store manager, the store manager, the regional manager, the district manager, and the representative of corporate gets to see it all. So you can imagine what I did. Needed a snack for school? Filled out the survey. Needed groceries? Filled out the survey. Needed a drink? Survey. I went to that store multiple times and got so many different surveys because there wasn't a limit on how many you could fill out. And I made sure to put everything that D-Bag was doing on all those surveys, including how he treated his employees. 3 months after I left, the person they hired back in seafood to make sure I couldn't go back there quit. 6 months after I left, D-Bag was nowhere to be found. A new manager took over for him, and no one seems to know what happened to D-Bag. Unfortunately, D-Bag is probably now pulling the same antics at a different store, so if any of you out there work retail and don't like your boss, who knows, you may have him as a manager right now. At least in this case, I'm glad he got what he deserved by getting fired. But if you think I deserve a like on this video, please don't forget to give me one. That was an awful transition, but I will take it. Our next story comes from Mike Oxenfair. Bad boyfriend takes the walk of ultimate shame. From a good friend who lives in South America. Not my story, hers. This happened about 16 years ago. My friend, let's call her Maria, had been dating a guy called Oscar for 2.5 years or so when she found out on the grapevine, if you live in a small town you'll understand, that Oscar had betrayed her. He'd been to a party, got a girl drunk, and slept with her. News of his actions had spread as gossip does. The worst part of it was that it seemed that it wasn't the first time that it had happened. Well, Maria heard and plotted revenge. She invited him to her flat for a special afternoon of fun with her and her friend Vanessa. Oscar could not resist the temptation, so he went. Picture the scene. He goes into the building where she lives, gets into the lift to go up to the 10th floor to her apartment. He rings the bell. He can hear music playing from behind the door. She opens the door and he walks in and sees that both his girlfriend Maria and her friend Vanessa are there, each wearing a sexy silk lingerie. Maria is holding a blindfold and tells him to wear it. He agrees and she puts it on him and tells him to strip naked. While he was busy, Vanessa put her clothes back on, walked out of the apartment while leaving a doorstep to keep the door open, and called the lift. She then walked back in, grabbed Oscar's clothes, and threw them out the window into the car park below. She then left the apartment and went down the stairs, ringing doorbells as she descended. Maria had been leading Oscar around the apartment, disorienting him, and then led him out of the apartment, closed the door behind her, and got into the lift alone, calling him an unfaithful a-hole whose clothes are in the car park, before the lift doors closed. Oscar ripped off the blindfold and must have realized how screwed he was, as he had to walk down 10 flights of stairs buck naked, passing laughing neighbors all the way. He collected his clothes, and Maria never saw him again. I think what makes the story even worse is that the OP said that this happened in a small town. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Oscar had to move across the globe to escape this, and even then, he might not. Just goes to show that cheaters never win. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I'll see you in the next video.